It's a very well-known fact that Anakin Skywalker all but loathed his home planet of Tatooine. Having grown up there, he was completely sick of its sandy environment and the lawlessness that persisted among the inhabitants. Of course, that was only the superficial reasons why he truly despised the planet. The memories of his enslavement and of his mother dying to the violent Tusken Raiders, and memories of the same Tusken Raiders that he would slaughter after they took his mother from him. All of this added up to make Tatooine the main place that Anakin would go out of his way to avoid. All throughout the Clone Wars, Anakin only ever had to go back to Tatooine once, and that was during the kidnapping of Jabba's son. As Vader, he would continue this effort and ensure that he didn't have anything to do with Tatooine whatsoever. He would have to visit that place of torment for him again during A New Hope, when the Death Star plans were jettisoned towards the world that he hated so dearly. Even then though, Vader never set foot on the sands of Tatooine personally. Despite that planet being a source of great misery for the Dark Lord, there was a time when his visit to Tatooine actually managed to dangerously bring him close to the light side. So what happened then? Why did Vader's return to this wretched world actually bring him closer to the light side, and closer to rethinking his entire life as a Sith Lord? Well, today, my friends, that will be answered in this holocron, so let's begin. It seems to be rather contradictory to say that Darth Vader would ever grow closer to the light when visiting a place that he hated with all of his passion and fury. However, our story takes place only days after the Cloud City duel on Bespin, when Vader revealed himself to Luke as his father. In the canon comic Darth Vader run from 2020, we join the Dark Lord of the Sith as he sets his sights on uncovering the truth of Luke's birth and existence. The duel had left Darth Vader intrigued, but more than this, incredibly angry. He found his child to be weak and disappointing in contrast to the great potential that he sensed within the boy. The person he had dueled on Bespin was no Jedi Knight, and Vader desired to seek out the people that made him so weak in the first place, and take his vengeance upon them. Along the way though, he had also hoped to figure out how his wife Padme had survived long enough to give birth, and who the culprit was that hid Luke away from Vader for all of these years. He definitely suspected Kenobi pretty heavily, but still was unclear as to how the Jedi Master managed to pull it off without Vader's knowledge, and get away with it. So the Sith Lord decides to work his way backwards, and travels to the one place that he is certain Luke is from. That is, Tatooine. He knew this because by now he had already previously dispatched Boba Fett to dig up information about the young Skywalker, and capture him for the Empire. While Boba failed to capture Luke at the time, he did learn the name of the boy, as well as some other information about who exactly had raised him. Anyway, Vader deemed the situation a worthy enough reason to return to that dreaded sand planet. He wasted no time in doing so, and as soon as he landed, he already had the Imperial Records Bureau of Tatooine stationed and ready to give him access to the information he needed as soon as his shuttle touched sand. When Luke's name was searched through the database, it hardly took any time before the home of Cliegg Lars was brought up, along with their home address. Of course, in that database would also be listed the name Shmi Skywalker. Vader entered the room, and upon hearing that name, the flashbacks soon began. It was here that Darth Vader actually took a back seat, as it was Anakin Skywalker peeking through the dark cloud for the first time in decades. He remembered his mother telling him to be brave as she sent him away with the Jedi Master. Vader walked through the now rusted and dilapidated Lars homestead, looking around the same workshop that we saw Luke working in many years earlier. A droid is with Vader, feeding him information about Luke, and stating that while there was no such information available about the boy, he was known for his exceptional piloting skill. The workshop being full of tools and oil also gave away that he was good with machines. The whole time Vader continues to get flashbacks as he realizes just how similar Luke is to Anakin Skywalker. He remembers when he was trying to fix something in the Lars home following Shmi's death, using much of the same tools that Vader was now finding in Luke's garage. Soon, the droid mentions that Shmi died to the Tusken Raiders, and Vader is then overwhelmed with visions. He sees Yoda reminding him of where anger would lead. He sees his wife Padme begging him to run away with her. Padme's face changes to that of Luke, and then back to Padme. The scene of Vader attempting to bring Luke to the dark side on Bespin, properly mirroring him attempting to get Padme to join his side, join him and rule the galaxy forever, both of whom refused his offer. Both chose death rather than to join Vader in the darkness. It is now when Vader begins to realize that Luke isn't just like Anakin, but he is just as much Padme too. Completely overcome with emotion, Vader then remembers Luke falling into the shaft on Bespin. Luke becomes Shmi. Shmi becomes Padme. All the people he cared about, rejected or gone. Vader quickly leaves the Lars homestead and ignites his lightsaber in fury. But now, he is all alone. There is no one there to punish for Luke's weakness. There is nothing left of his old life, except for the shadow that now remains. The shadow that calls itself Darth Vader. It's here where the icing on the cake of all of this occurs, and Vader stumbles over the headstones of Shmi Skywalker and Klieg Lars, now just poking ever so slightly out of the sand, lost to time. Standing there, staring down at the headstone, Vader is given one last painful memory of Anakin. Anakin on his knees in front of Shmi's grave, saying he wasn't strong enough to save her, and declaring that he will never fail again. Vader is then shaken out of his thoughts and brought back to the present whenever an Imperial escort, the one sent with him, is destroyed by incoming pirates. These unlucky pirates would then serve as the outlet of all of Vader's anger and pent-up anguish. All Vader has is the dark side. Everything else is dead or gone. So how exactly did this all lead to him eventually embracing the light? And how did this moment draw Darth Vader closer to the light? In Return of the Jedi, Vader refuses the idea that there is any conflict within him, but this is quite the contrary. This comic details one of the first times that there is true conflict as it begins to arise within Vader. When he returned, he found out what happened to Luke. He instead is faced again with what happened to himself. He is faced with Anakin. He is reminded that Anakin Skywalker still exists, and that Vader has failed to destroy him completely because of the fact that Anakin lives on in Luke. This causes Anakin's consciousness to break through the surface for one of the first time. His grief returns to him. He is faced directly with why he turned to the dark side, why Anakin turned. After his journey to Tatooine is complete, Sidious is extremely angry with him and begins to torture him, accusing Vader of wallowing in grief rather than growing stronger from this field trip into the past. While Sidious thought it was impossible by now for Vader to ever return to the light, there's no denying that Vader's interactions with his son has made Sidious feel quite uneasy and even maybe nervous. Not only is his grand lie exposed, but now Vader actually has something more to live for than just power or the Force. It is possible that Sidious feared Vader using his son to overthrow the Emperor eventually, but Sidious never saw the conflict that had arisen within the Dark Lord from this moment on. But anyway, my friends, this was the story of how one trip to Tatooine almost brought Vader back to the light, and how this is the beginning of the re-emergence of Anakin Skywalker, the return of the Jedi. But anyway, my friends and fellow acolytes of the Force, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and your thoughts on Vader's trip to Tatooine.